Steve here with Allied RPG. In this video, we'll be touching on some pretty volatile topics, I would say some of the most controversial in all of tabletop gaming, namely AI and the business of game development. Before we go too far down the road, let's go ahead and set some ground rules for this conversation. Notice first, I said conversation. This is a discussion, not an argument, right? We debate to learn, not to win. So feel free to comment. I have no problem with contrary ideas or all that kind of stuff, but just keep those comments respectful. Anything that starts to devolve, name calling, and stupid stuff like that, yeah, we'll remove those comments. We'll talk extensively about AI at the end of this video, but I want to start by talking about the business of tabletop game creation. And I say that a little bit distastefully, I suppose, because everybody here at Allied RPG, we do this for the love of the game. This is a labor of love for us. All of our stuff, all of our content is released for free. We all work different jobs, okay? So Allied RPG is not a business. I've just spent thousands of dollars of my own personal money to put it out there. And I'll tell you why we do that. First of all, we love to play. We love to write. That's our team. We are writers, okay? And so we're going to write whether we're paid or not because it's just what we love to do. It's what we're made to do. And so we tell stories, and I think we're pretty darn good at it. But if you're already going to go through the time to craft a campaign, everything's already there. Now it's just a matter of formatting and getting it out there. And with the technology that's out there nowadays to get things published, with printing on demand and things like that, where you don't have to shell out big bucks to have inventory and all of that, basically everything is free. And so we can do it that way. So getting a website up and running was no big deal and all that kind of stuff. So all the stuff we do is for our own enjoyment, and we figure we've already put in the time, already put in the work, we might as well offer it to you fine people. And of course, it's free of charge on the Allied RPG website. Now that said, I want to address this idea of game creation as a business. And I'll approach it from this perspective. So this past December, one of my co-writers and I went to PAX in Philadelphia. And I didn't quite know what to expect. I'd been to a bunch of conventions before and things like that, but PAX was a little different. PAX was huge, and it was flooded with all these people that basically were, everybody wanted to basically make this as their career, okay? I'll start by saying I have no problem with that. I don't begrudge that at all. That's just not for me. That's not for our writers. If you want to join our team on Allied RPG, that's what this thing is, Creative Writers Wanted. There's a whole section on our team page on how it works to write with us. Nobody gets paid, but when your stuff gets published, you get all the credit for it, and any royalties that do come from sales of print copies go right to you. But other than that, we're not saying, we're going to salary this, all that. We're not kickstarting the game, trying to raise millions of dollars because the game's already developed. So let me kind of backtrack a little and tell you what I learned at PAX that was, I don't know what the word is. Eye-opening, I guess, is the best way to describe it. A little on the disappointing side, not going to lie there. So we saw all these people that were, developing games and all that. Sat in on a couple of sessions where it was a pretty famous group of role players that do it. It wasn't Critical Role, but kind of like that. That auditorium was packed, and basically they played a session of D&D live, and they videotaped it and all that. My co-writer and I kind of looked at each other and said, we tell way better stories than this. Like we didn't understand what the hype was, It was almost like kind of, I don't want to say heartless, but it was just sort of like, well, we do this because we do this and it's our job, okay? So then I sat out on a breakout session with a group of folks that were involved in crowdfunding for these games. And this was a pretty heavy hitter panel, okay? There were some, I won't mention the names of them, but they were pretty big in the industry, and they were the panelists. And during that hour discussion about game like promotion and all that kind of stuff, they talked about quality, but they talked about it in terms of like components of the game and the packaging of the game and the marketing of the game. Never once in that entire discussion, including the question and answer, did it ever come to the topic of, is the game any good? And to me, you know, I've developed board games, I've developed tabletop games, that kind of stuff. You know, it's one thing to create a game, it's another to create a good game. And so I feel like, you know, at least what we saw, where there are tons of these people that are like, well, I just want to be a game designer. That's what I want to do for my career, and I want to make money at it. But do you develop good games? You know, for us, it took 3.5 years or so to develop Alloyed RPG because it was the game we wanted to play. Like, that's the thing. That's the whole driver of it, right? It wasn't just to throw another game out there. It was that we felt like there was something that wasn't quite clicking on all cylinders for us. And that's how we created Alloyed RPG. And we wrote it and broke it and wrote it and broke it and wrote it and broke it. And then it was finally done. And so then we released it, you know. But I feel like there's sort of a, well, you do this campaign, you roll it out on Kickstarter, you make $1 million, and then that funds your next one. And you do the next one and the next one and the next one. That's fine if that's your career goal and all that kind of stuff, but that is definitely not us here at Alloyed RPG. So that's the business side of tabletop role-playing game development, but it ties into this whole idea of AI and its use. Now, many of you already know, and I will just say it up front, that Alloyed RPG unapologetically uses AI. Okay, we make no bones about it. But before you go ahead and leave the conversation, let me tell you our position. First off, AI is not a hill that I am going to die on. Okay, use it, don't use it, I don't care. It's a tool. To be perfectly honest with you, Alloyed RPG kind of uses AI like a very sophisticated clip art, okay? And it's important to realize that because most of you are familiar with that kind of thing, and you wouldn't want to be shelling out thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money to do some illustrations that you know are not even going to sell because you're doing everything for free. Back to that discussion. We don't do this as a business. We do it because we love the game. So for us, shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars on artwork when we are writers, and that's our thing, is to drive the story, that just doesn't make any sense. Now, I could see that if you are going to set aside something and do this, you know, $1 million Kickstarter campaign and all that kind of stuff, that maybe would make sense. But for us, it certainly doesn't. I've already mentioned the fact that the team here at Alloyed RPG, we are a bunch of writers. That's our thing. We're not artists. So for us, the storytelling is the craft, right? And so as we're drafting up stuff and we need a quick, like, it'd be good to have a little illustration here, a little illustration there. I will tell you, besides the money part, AI is really great for time, right? Because if I just need a little snippet picture to enhance the story, I don't want to wait for 2 weeks going back and forth with a commission artist for one little thing while I'm waiting to write paragraphs. You know, it just doesn't work. So it really makes that writing flow a whole lot faster. Now let me address this whole idea that AI somehow takes commissions away from artists, okay? I'm going to be pretty direct about this, and it's going to probably touch on some nerves. You're probably not going to agree with it, but I don't care, because I'll tell you why I don't care. Because over the years, I've commissioned personally tens of thousands of dollars of artwork. Okay, I have other businesses and things like that. I work with illustrators all the time. Some of you are probably even watching this video. I'll address it by example. Okay, so take this book, for instance. This is our Alloyed RPG Core Essentials book. You can see clearly this is an AI front cover, AI back cover, bunch of AI in there also, okay? All right, I have no bones about that. I can tell you without AI, this book never would have happened. And if this book never would have happened, because I could not ever afford the artwork that goes in here, we're probably looking at about $30 $30,000 worth of art, okay, for a book that we already put online as a PDF for free. And I think I make, Allied RPG makes $5 a copy when this book sells. Something like that. Never make your money back on that. We're not doing Kickstarters. Again, we're not in it for a business. So this book never would have happened without AI. Why is that important? Because also in this book, if I can find it, here we go, you'll find a bunch of lovely maps. Thank you, Arturo. These maps are commissioned art. These maps cost me thousands of dollars. And I think that was still a good deal. So again, thanks, Arturo. But those commissions never would have happened if we knew that that book never would make it to publication. And so as a result, I was able to take some money, not $30,000, but I was able to take what I did have and commission an artist and cartographer to do the map work. Never would have done that. Also used, I think, an illustration from Ways Unseen. Again, wouldn't have had the money to do that if we were all tapped out doing the whole thing. So just the opposite in our case, as far as commissioning artists, it actually generated commissions rather than took away from them. Another thing about art is that it is very subjective. If you look at this shelf behind me, I've got a bunch of games. They are all done with different art styles, okay? So just because you are a good artist doesn't mean that you do your art in the style that someone's looking for. I think that is hugely important, okay? Certain art works for certain things and it doesn't work for other things. And so if you go to a place like DeviantArt or whatever, you know, I work with an illustrator in California, hey Trav, for our business, and I've commissioned, oh my gosh, I've been working with him for 10, 12 years, something like that. Okay, there was a certain style. I went to DeviantArt. I looked through thousands and thousands of galleries till I finally came across him. Now, once you find the style that you like, a couple of other things have to happen. One, they actually have to be willing to take commission work. Not everybody does. Can you feed them an idea and they'll go ahead and draw it in for you? That's not the case with a lot of artists. There are plenty of them out there that say, well, this is what I do. You can either buy this piece or not. There you go. I don't do commission work. So just because you found the style doesn't mean that, that they'll do it for you. The next thing is, once you get past that stage, then the question is, well, can you afford it, right? I think, like how many of us could have afforded like Frank Franzetta or whatever, like these guys that are like, yeah, well, I'll do a piece for you. That cover is going to be 10 grand, whatever. Like, okay, well, that's out of reach, So art has a certain limitation to it, and you got to realize that from the commercial side. Now, that's why I talked about the business side of this tabletop gaming before we discussed AI, because I think that's a very important part, and it's a very important distinction. If this is your career, you're you're WotC or whatever, and you can afford to have artists on staff and all this kind of stuff, then sure, do human art. I totally get that, and I get the pushback on that. But if you're just an indie and you're doing this, and you know that more than likely you're going to sell 100 copies of this thing or whatever, regardless of Kickstarters and all that kind of stuff, it just does not make sense to dump thousands of dollars into a project that's really a labor of love and that's going to be, given out for free just for the fun of the game. I'll interject another thought in that I think this whole topic of AI is a little bit lopsided toward the visual art side versus the writing side. In other words, you'll see a lot of people talk about how it takes, commissions away from the visual artists, but I don't have people that are asking me to commission writing for their artwork. And so it's kind of a weird imbalance in that regard. So I would say this, maybe as some kind of a compromise, how about artists, if you really believe in a project, go ahead and don't charge for your artwork, but tie yourself into profits from sales, just like we do as the writers. Throws in a little different aspect to the conversation for sure. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that at least it explains the position that we have. So, before you're too hard on people that use AI, kind of put yourself in their shoes as well. Again, I know that this is a hugely controversial topic. I know that many of you who are out there, are desperately wanting to be game developers as a career. I'm not going to encourage or discourage that, but I will say, if you're going to do it, then at least please, please, please develop a good game. Put that first before the career of it, the business of it. I think the quality of the game itself needs to be the primary objective. The rest, that should be not an afterthought, but definitely should be secondary to it. And then as far as those of you who are adamantly against AI, just consider this, at least in certain cases, ours being one of them, our ability to use AI has actually made it so that we can put the game out there. It normally would not have even seen the light of day. And because it saw the light of day, we are actually able to commission as we are able to do it. So it's not all bad. It's just a tool. It's how you use it. So anyway, look forward to your comments below. Again, keep them respectful, keep them kind. This is a discussion, not an argument. Thanks again for watching, and may your dice always roll with advantage.